The hardest problem that I have with Jefferson is his stance on slavery. It is very hard for me to understand how a man could write a phrase that says all men are created equal and in the same breath own between 150 to 175 slaves. By the time of his death, he owned 200 slaves. His words and his actions are in such conflict and contradiction to one another. When Jefferson says all men are created equal, he is speaking of white men who own land. Paul Feckelman, a professor at the Hamline University School of Law, gives an account during the Revolutionary War when Cornwallis comes through and runs off with a bunch of Jefferson slaves. Jefferson later writes and complains that he only got 5 of the slaves back, and that many of the rest died from smallpox in the British camps. Jefferson says if Cornwallis had taken the slaves to free them, he would have done the right thing. But Jefferson gets 5 slaves back and does not free them. He keeps them in bondage for the rest of their lives. How does Jefferson speak of human liberties and chase after runaway slaves? He used slaves as capital when he needed money. Jefferson lived a lavish lifestyle on the backs of slave labor. He bought his paintings, sculptures, and wine in France by selling his slaves. Between 1785 and 1795, he sold over 80 slaves. Thomas Jefferson's works and words have so much influence. During the time of the American Revolution, Jefferson was involved in legislation that he hoped would result in slaves' abolition. In 1778, he drafted a Virginia law that prohibited the importation of enslaved Africans. In 1784, he proposed an ordinance that would ban slavery in the Northwest Territories. Jefferson's stance was that the decision to emancipate slaves would have to be part of a democratic process. Jefferson assumed that the abolition of the slave trade would weaken slavery and hasten its end. Instead, slavery became more widespread and profitable. The slave population in Virginia grew from 292,627 slaves in 1790 to 469,757 slaves in 1836. Jefferson wrote that maintaining slavery was like holding a wolf by the ear, and we cannot neither hold him nor safely let him go. Thomas Jefferson may be a great statesman, but his legacy will forever be tainted by his words and deeds towards the support of slavery.